Welcome to Synced on Air. I'm your host, Angelique Robb, and today I have Chris Major with me from CM Images. Welcome, Chris.
Hi.
Glad to have you on. I'd like to start with just having you explain how you got to the point of launching CM Images, because I think it's a great story and it really sets the scene. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background before launching your company?
Yeah, sure. Well, then first off, thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to just have this conversation with you and everyone else that might be listening. And I was a landscape designer for a design build firm for 12 years in West Michigan. And I really, really enjoyed uh, that process, being involved with the designing, and I was also involved with installation and maintenance even prior before taking that role. So I guess like
Okay.
even including the little bit of design that I still do to this day, I have about 20 years of experience in the
In the industry, in different
landscape
parts.
industry. Yeah, in various ways, but mostly in design. And I realized that I wanted to have a deeper impact on the industry, and something that I noticed more and more that was kind of lacking, and maybe I think still is the quality of images and visuals and video that are being presented to customers. I noticed a direct correlation, but when I was a designer, we would hired a photographer to help capture images, and then we put them on the website, and we started to notice people engaging with us, talking about the images, and they said things like, this image really spoke to me, or
Wow.
we really like this job in this portfolio, and they started referencing the portfolio to help guide them in their design choices. So that became apparent to me that there is a really strong correlation with great images leading to positive sales. And I think it's kind of a no-brainer, but it's sort of like when you're in the throes of you're so busy in the trade, you're busy doing all the various things that go into having a landscape business or a business in general. It's hard to see the forest through the trees and so forth. And like, it's
Well,
just
you have to
so
plan for it, don't
tricky.
you? You have to cost it in to your job. Like it has to be part of your overheads or however, you
Yeah.
have to plan ahead for it.
Yeah, you have to plan ahead. I mean, it's one thing to plan from a budgetary perspective, which I think is tricky sometimes, especially when you're first starting off. But the big thing is just knowing that you should be doing it, because you're missing opportunity if you don't. And that's what I realized around 2020. I decided, I'm gonna take a leap of faith on myself, and I decided to leave the company I was working at, and I started my own business doing specifically photography for the green industry. And I traveled, I traveled out to Colorado, and I worked with I worked with a great landscaper, a good friend of mine now, and we hit it off, and we had a great time shooting for almost a week. And
Wow.
I got back exhausted from that, but I realized right then and there that that was it. I was hooked. And so I just had a blast doing that, and I wanted to do it more and more. And so it's sort of kind of grown from there, as these things tend to do. And now from this point, I'm kind of reaching into aspects of not only the photography, but also the motion aspect. But then even beyond that, it's connecting the dots from what are the images that we're presenting to our clients, and then how are we lining those up with the words for our marketing to our clients? Because if I have the two together, then there's a disconnect as well. And then to even take it another step further, I noticed over the years that I was shooting that there were clients that I would shoot for, and then I would never see their images anywhere. It wouldn't be on the website. It would not make it on social. I know it's crazy, right? You invest in this and you don't use it. Well, and I realized that I understood that, because when I was in the throes of the season,
Yeah.
and I don't think it matters where you are, because like I'm Michigan based, but I travel all over the nation, and I get to meet landscape professionals from all across different areas. And the same thing is correlating in that they are all crazy during the season. So
Okay,
Well, it's
not
just
just crazy. Okay, good. Yeah.
yeah, no, well, that's for maybe another podcast, but I think the takeaway is that even if you are, you know, in a warmer climate or a cooler climate, you know, you might say, "I have downtime during the snow season." Well, if you're plowing snow, we all know that
You
that
don't.
downtime is not always your own. So it really just creates this atmosphere of hecticness and chaos. Don't necessarily have time, and you become, you know, contractors become really overwhelmed with the day to day, and to take time to post photos or to create a reel and so forth, you know, that just becomes completely low tier for them. So I understand
Burner.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes really back burner. So, you know, I get the struggle. I totally understand it. And so I realize, hey, there needs to be an aspect of implementation within that too. So now I'm, you know, working towards that as well, working with
Okay.
clients to help with some of that implementation and help get their photos out there. So it's not just about creating a beautiful photo. It's about the strategy behind it, and it's about how you're implementing.
That's great. Yeah, and I think you said earlier about how the words that you use for your brand and the photos need to match. I think that's really powerful because it is you're selling in a lot of cases we're selling an experience of design, build, and what it's going to feel like afterwards, and the the client's putting money down based on what it feels like afterwards. So the more you can explain that to them in pictures and words, I think that the better your entire brand comes across.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of it comes down to getting clear on your message. And I've worked with contractors, and we've been trying to dial in their, you know, well, what images should I take, or what, you know, what should I write? And I'm realizing, like, okay, we need to just get clear on your strategy, and that's going to help pave the way and make this a whole lot easier and maybe even a little bit fun, so that you can start seeing the results that you're looking for. Because it you know, I've been there myself where it's like, okay, you're staring at the screen. What am I going to write? What am I going to post? And you're wondering, oh my goodness, it just feels like it's spray and pray. You're just throwing things out there, and you know, something will happen, I guess, maybe, hopefully. Well, that's not really, that may have worked at one point, but
Mm.
honestly, I think we're at a different place now. And the companies that are being strategic about about what they are posting, about what the images that they're taking,
Yeah.
and the way that they're positioning themselves in the marketplace, they're the ones that are going to see the real benefit of all of this kind of work. It's really easy to just throw a lot of money, a lot of time and effort into, you know, capturing images and then posting things online. And it doesn't even matter the platform. I think that it really comes down to, are you being clear to your customer? You know, if we think about the messages that we're saying, are we being clear, or are we confusing them? Because if we're confusing, if we're trying to be clever and we're trying to, you know, just act in a way that makes people think, then we're going to lose them. And when you confuse, you're going to lose your clients, and you're going to lose opportunity. So that's where I feel like there's a lot of overlap between not just the words that we're speaking, but also capturing images that align with them. So, for example, I think that there's a lot of power to showing um, certain details in the landscape that a client might not necessarily see, because they're not seeing all that on the day to day.
Like
Drainage
what?
is kind of one of those
Okay.
not so exciting things to talk about, but it's something that really affects a lot of people. And so if we can speak to the problems, and I'm just giving drainage as an example, there's
Yeah.
so many, right, that landscapers solve, creating an experience for families to gather outside. Like that's something very
Mm.
valuable, right? And I think that when we're showing that value, then we're getting much more clear on not only our brand, but also the type of customer that we want to attract. And then it's going to really help that process go faster. You're going to sell things easier. You're going to have better conversations. You're going to be able to pick through the weeds, you know, the tire kickers that are out there, because we all know that that happens in the trade. And so if you're showing them the things that are going to resonate faster, then that's going to help move things along, and you're going to make sales quicker. You're going to, you know, just everything's going to go further and faster that way. Does that make sense?
I think it does. And I've always thought that our industry, what makes it more, and I say this lightly, like it makes it more expensive than people think, is because they don't understand. They only see the surface cost,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like patio material. You know, they'll
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, well, you're charging me this for this, but at Lowe's, I can buy this for this. And we as an industry need to be better at explaining that what makes, you know, the product that we build, you know, strong and last for a long time is actually not the paver. That's the icing on the cake. It's
Mm-hmm.
everything below that that is important. And it's, I mean, you brought up drainage. It's funny because that is, yeah, it doesn't sound sexy, but we've had a recent article where we're like, can stormwater management be sexy? Because, you know, you can tell it like a story. You know, this is, you know, this was built like this for these practical reasons, but it still is beautiful.
Yeah.
Because in that
I,
garden, we had like dry riverbeds and, you know, kind of a zen feel to it,
mhm.
but it was very practical as well.
Yeah, again, it comes back to solving problems, right? And if we can show clients just how well we can do that in a beautiful way, you said dry creek bed. That's a really good, that's almost like low-hanging fruit, right? Because whenever we
Yeah.
think about drainage, usually we're thinking about drain tile that we're burying in the ground. You can't
Mm.
really take a photo of that, or you're showing like a construction photo and it's not that exciting. And what I was thinking is
I
more
think
along the
construction
lines like,
photos are exciting, but anyway,
well, in the industry they are. To a client, like they're
the
not
client,
buying,
yeah.
you know, like at the end of the day, you know, they're not buying pretty trucks. They're not buying holes in the ground. They're buying, what they're really purchasing is that feeling that they can come home to something solid. They
Mm,
purchase that the value in which they've invested into is not the physical things of the landscape, the drain tile, the base material, the polymeric sand, the paver itself. Like none of that matters really, because that's why there's so many different options out there. What
mhm,
matters to these clients, to the homeowners especially, is that they become the hero of the story, that their problem is solved, that they can
yeah,
come home to a place that is their own personal sanctuary, you know, a place that they can get away, a place that they can have friends and family over, and do that with ease, because now they have room in their back patio. They got rid of the 10 by 10, you know, contractor grade concrete pad that was put in the
when the
beginning when they
house was
first
built,
built the
yeah.
house, right? Right? And we've all been through this, right? I mean, if anybody that's in sales, design and sales, like they've had these conversations where they're like, yeah, we just come home and there's no room for the kids to run around and it's really wet in the back and we just don't really know what to do. We're so overwhelmed. Now, if we're paying attention and listening to what that client is really saying, we should not be thinking about they need a patio. And it's like, no, they need rest. They need a place to be able to relax.
Mhm,
And we could do that in so many different ways and so many different avenues. It can be with a patio. It can be with a beautiful lawn space. It can be with, you know, maybe it's a xeriscape. Maybe it's a lot of drainage, with taking care of that drainage issue, that wet area. You know, it's like these are common conversations that landscapers have on a daily basis. And it's not really that uncommon, but if we're showing how we're creating solutions to those problems and showing the value and showing the customer really, really happy, then it's going to start connecting the dots a lot faster. That person that's looking at your website, if you're a contractor and you're listening to this and, you look at your website, are you showing a bunch of photos of your trucks and talking about all the awards that you win, right off the bat? Because if you're doing that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're doing that right off the bat, you're actually missing an opportunity to connect with your client, because the client isn't showing up to your website to look at trucks and awards that you've won. Those are great and those are important, but in the very, very first part of your website, you need to be really hitting home the value that you're proposing to them, and how you are coming alongside of them and guiding them through this really complex issue that they're having,
Yeah.
whether it's creating a patio space, whether it's updating their backyard, installing a pool and a pergola and all of those wonderful things. And it's just, I think that's something that I feel is really important to help convey to homeowners from the landscape industry, because it's just a great opportunity to connect those dots.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you give us an example of somebody that you worked with recently and how you conveyed those messages?
So yeah, I mean, there's a company in West Michigan, a great company on the west side of Michigan, and they do great work. And really wanted to start connecting those dots and really creating that value connection to the client.
Yeah. And so what how did you take photos? Did you go back to like a lot of their previous projects, or did you know, how did you build that into the photos?
Well, in this case, they already have a pretty good portfolio. So we've been working on some video to help round things out a little bit more, and actually a little bit of that's still in progress. But the putting together like a client testimonial, there's a lot of value to gathering a good, solid
Mm.
testimonial, and when you put it into video, that really helps connect clients really well.
When you were talking about the quality of photos and things like that, it made me wonder that hiring photographers to take photos of landscape projects used to be maybe a little bit more prevalent, but maybe only for the larger companies. But then since we all have iPhones and things like that, do you think everybody's now thinking they're a photographer, and that's maybe where people are just not realizing the importance of, you know, a different perspective on photography and video, that we all have these cameras in our pockets. And what would you say to someone who has taken all their photos, but they're just, you can tell they're not coming from the same perspective that you would?
Yeah, so I guess we have to look at it in a couple different ways. And number one, if I'm speaking to maybe somebody that's new to the industry and they don't have the budget to hire a photographer and all they have is their phone and that's what they have, you know what? The best camera is the one that you have in your hand. And if that's what you have, then use that. I'm
Mm.
not going to say, oh my goodness, you shouldn't do that. I'm going to say use it, but use it well, use it appropriately. Take a moment and hop on. There's endless tutorials on YouTube that you can find to take great mobile phone images. And, I have I actually have a document, I have a PDF that's available on my website that
Oh,
if
okay.
you want to take great shots, of your landscapes. It doesn't matter what camera, whether it's a DSLR or a phone or whatever. But I
Okay.
think at the end of the day, make some good choices and capture your projects well. And so, like that would be for anybody that's just getting started, or they don't really know where to go, or it's just there's too much, but they're right there in the moment and they don't know if they're ever going to get onto the site again or something like that. Hey, then take take the image, but take the time to take a few moments and make it so that it is going to look good for you. But what I would say to somebody that says, well, I just want to take my own photos. Hey, that's cool. That's fine. If that's what you want to do. And if you feel like you have the time and the bandwidth to be able to do that and do it well, that it's going to do all the things that we've already talked about, go for it. That's awesome. It's, some people really have a passion for it and they enjoy doing it. Then by all means, go for it. But if you are going to do that, then think about these couple of little quick takeaways. Number one, and I see this all the time, clean the site. It seems so silly, but go grab a blower and blow the patio off. Okay. Don't be, if you're going to do it right and clean
Yeah.
the site and make it so that it's
Remove the
presentable.
tools.
And yeah, well, it's kind of like, your client is like a guest, right? And if you want guests to come over to your house, you want your house to be kind of in order. And especially if you don't know them. And so just take a few moments, clean some things, fluff, the outdoor pillows if they're on, an outdoor patio set like that, skim the pool, just do some of those real simple things. And I know they take time, but if you want to really make a difference, just take a moment and clean the site. I cannot get over how many sites that I have been on and like, oh yeah, the site's ready. And I get there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't ready. And so the checklist for clients that I just send out with every single proposal, and it's on my website. It's free to grab. It's a quick checklist of how to make your site ready for photos. And so
Good.
clean the site, number one, that's super important. Number two, choose the right time of day. I know we don't always get that opportunity when we're on site because maybe you're at a meeting and this is what time you're given. But if you have the opportunity to come back at a different time and you have permission to do so, then choose the time that's going to put the property or the project in its best light. And golden hour is, we hear this term a lot, and that's that time before or after sunrise and sunset. That's a kind of this magical little time frame that we can work with, golden hour and blue hour and all those wonderful things. That's in that vicinity, that hour before and hour after sunrise and sunset, that's where we can have some really, really nice light in various ways. And if experiment, kind of see what you like. But for the most part, you're going to want to use the best light possible so that you're capturing the landscape in a way that's not going to distract the audience. And that's why the lighting is important. It's not just to make it pretty, but it's to make it so that it's interesting to look at. And sometimes, especially if it's a big hardscape job, having that lower angle of the sun will accentuate some of the texture on the patio. That can be a
Okay.
really nice thing if you want to show off, a big hardscape job. That's something to take into consideration.
Well, and I also, I've heard people say, "Oh no, gotta wait for it to be sunny," but like the shadows can really make what you've created can distract from it. It can hide some of the features if you have those strong shadows. It doesn't
Yeah, it's the
always.
strong part that's important. Having shadows is totally fine in an image. In fact, I think I was scrolling one day and I saw a landscape company posted a photo, and they had over edited it. And this would be another thing that I was going to mention. I'll get to that in a second. But they edited it so strongly that there was almost no shadows whatsoever. And what that means is that now there's no contrast.
Okay.
When we have we have light and shadow, like that's just how it works, right? Like that's real life. And when we're looking at something, it makes it look natural. And we don't want to take that away to the point where, oh my gosh, then it kind of makes the image look flat and then it becomes actually uninteresting. Now,
Okay.
you can go the other way and have too much, and then you can't see, but we can't see that definition, and that's where we get into trouble, where if you wait too long into the day, you get really deep shadows and really bright highlights. Then camera, especially, our eyes are amazing and we can somehow handle the dynamic range, but cameras aren't like our eyes, and it has to make decisions based on what its internal setup is and what your settings are, and all that kind of thing. And I'm not going
Okay.
to get into all of that boring stuff, but the takeaway is that if you wait until the shadows are too deep, then you might lose some of the detail that you want to show. This is especially evident in heavily more like wooded areas where you can get like streams of light coming through during the day, or if it's overhead sun, that's almost the worst, because then you have the sun just kind of coming straight down and it's really bright on surfaces and it's reflecting back at you. And then you can look, and then you try to look beyond that and there's all kinds of darkness, and it just makes a really muddy image for the most part. And that's the time that we want to avoid to take
Okay.
photos if we can. So
Right.
so clean the site, have the right time of day to put the project in the best light. And another thing, and this is a real low hanging fruit that I see done pretty poorly, from if you're not taking the time to just take a moment to level the horizon and square up your frame.
Okay.
And so when you are taking just a moment to create a better composition for your image, you're going to level up your photography results quite a bit. And I know that seems so silly and so simple, but how many times have we looked on websites for a landscape contractor, and we see a beautiful landscape and patio, and it's by a lake, and it looks like the lake is going toward a
Which is
waterfall or
impossible.
something.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah, it's like that's not how the world works, and it takes you out of the moment. And
Right.
here's why it's this problem, right? It takes the viewer out of the moment and makes them think something's not right about that. And then they're not thinking about the thing that we want them to think about, which is the beauty of the work, the quality of
Yeah.
the craftsmanship. We're not seeing that. We're just seeing this picture that looks, kind of tilted, and it
Looks wrong.
takes you
Yeah.
completely distracts you. And so clean the site, use good times of day for a great light. Just take a moment and get those horizons level and square up with buildings. I've seen it a lot of times where, and you could do this from like an artistic viewpoint, but for the most part, it's better to try to get the vertical lines as vertical as possible, horizontal horizons as flat as possible. That's where we're going to start seeing a much higher quality of image. And so composition, lighting, and the utility of cleaning the site are just some of the three big takeaways that I would recommend if you're going to do your own photos. And
Yeah.
that's what I would say to somebody. I know that was pretty long-winded,
Awesome.
but if they're going to do it and they want to do it right, think about those things. And if you feel like, hey, yeah, that's not really something I A, have time for, or B, I want to deal with, or we haven't even talked about editing any of the photos, because right, I mean, and then it gets
Yeah.
even more complex, and it's like, I don't have time for this. I want to go build great work. I want to go meet with clients. I don't want to deal. Okay, well then we can start having a conversation about having a professional come in. And
To do
there's a
it
lot of great
right.
photographers out there that do great work. I'm not the only one, but it's like, if you're going to be trying to choose a photographer, look at their work and you look for the things that I pointed out. That's, want to make sure that you're putting yourself in alignment with somebody that can take images that are going to be the right quality.
Well, and I think it does help that you have been in the industry and understand what to look for, because it's more than just a close up of a beautiful plant. It's more what that landscape company creates as an experience. You also mentioned that you're focusing a lot more on movement in landscape. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think that movement in landscapes is a really, really important aspect, for not only for contractors to show to prospective clients, but also just to include in your general portfolio, that you can help somebody understand what it is to experience the landscape, because that's sort of where motion and video is going to really, really, really help create a more immersive experience for someone. And I guess I might rub a couple of people the wrong way with my take on it, but my take is that if we're just showing a whole lot of fast, crazy movements with a lot of crazy effects and transitions and this and that, and there's a lot of that out there, and we're not taking a moment to try to slow down and just experience the landscape for what it is from like a client's perspective. What is it like when they come into their into what is it like
Right.
for them to come into this space that has been created for them. And I think, there are times where it can be exciting, like, oh yeah, you're jumping in the pool and all that. That's fine, that's great. But if all we're showing is crazy, fast moving
Yeah.
things like that, then I think we're going to miss out on opportunities with a good chunk of audience and good chunk of customers that are not necessarily looking for the big excitement. They get enough excitement with their day. They're done when they want to come home. They want a place to unwind. They want a
Yeah.
place that's their own, that is providing solitude and not stress and chaos. And if we can show that, and it could be
Right.
as simple as just showing, ornamental grasses waving in the wind and the pool is in the background. We can do those things, and you can do it tastefully and artfully. And then if we're showing that person in the space too, or showing a model in the space, sometimes homeowners don't want to be in those kinds of situations, which is understandable. But, there are plenty of people that, you get some friends that dress nice for this. We come and we do this thing, or you can even hire models. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do that. And if we can show someone what it's like to be in the space, then and then the video can really help articulate that and communicate that in a clear way. That's where I think that we get a lot of traction in our in the media that we're putting out there.
So it sounds like you travel quite a bit with this role with your company. What kinds of companies, is it a certain size of company or type of company that you normally work for to give them these images and these experiences? Could you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
I think a lot of it comes down to the mindset that we're taking on. Because if it's just like, hey, I just need a photographer to capture images of this site, and looking at it from the perspective of I just need somebody to do a thing for me, then we're probably not going to be a good fit from that perspective. Does that make sense? Because like there are people out there just like, yeah, I just need somebody cheap to come out and capture a few shots and good
Yeah.
enough. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, all right, like I honestly
You want to
that's no
deliver
different
something
than
deeper
that's no
or more
different than a
meaningful.
homeowner saying to a landscaper, like, yeah, I just need somebody out to like mow the grass. That's all I need. Like, okay, hey, you know what? There are companies out there that do that and do it well, but that's probably maybe that's not where somebody would want to land as a contractor. That might not be an ideal
Yeah.
situation for them.
A good
So
fit.
similarly, that's probably like not the right fit for me in that regard. I think I'd much rather develop that relationship with them so that we can create something on this long-term standpoint where, hey,
Right.
we're capturing something that's going to be meaningful. There are some companies where I've been out year after year after year, and we've grown not only into like this great, there's this great professional relationship that happens, and, even, can grow into friendships. Not that I'm trying to just do that, but it's like you get this opportunity to
You should
really
know the company.
connect,
Yeah.
and I think that's what I really enjoy. And it's not about just the commodity of the product. It's about creating something that will show the value of the work that's being done. And you can see that come through, if I come out year after year working for clients, and they just, they're so excited. It's a big deal to do the photo shoot. That, it's, yeah, you're investing time and money and so forth into this process, but it's more than that. It's just excitement because we're building into something that that's going to elevate things for them, and it's a
And
great
attract the
thing.
right clients, more and more of the right clients. And I think we
Yeah.
all know that you start somewhere with a landscape company that you take everybody, anybody and everybody, and then you find your niche. You find your client that's like an avatar for who you want to work for. And all companies eventually get to that point. So then it sounds like what you want to do is help further that through the photos and the text on the
Yeah.
website
Well,
and what they promote.
And I don't, like there's a reason why I don't shoot weddings. There's a reason why I don't shoot family or senior portraits. It's just not my thing.
Yeah,
And you're just not going to see me do those things. The industry that I love, the industry that I've been a part of for years, is the one that I want to help support, and that's in landscape and construction trades. And I think that there's a lot of great opportunity to do that through great images and clear messaging, and that it's just something that I'm been finding myself more and more on a little bit of a crusade to help with. And that's the people that want that, they're going to be my ideal clients, because they're the ones that we're going to resonate the best. We're going to have the most fun on site, and it really needs to be fun. It should be a fun time. If it's something where it's just a real drag, then maybe it's not a right fit either way. But like
love
I
that.
find my best work is generally done when I can have the most, fun with the clients, and we're having a good time out on site, and it's celebrating the sites that are so meticulously designed and well crafted out in the field. And then that resonates not only through the images that they put on the website, but even within their crews, because I've gone to sites, or excuse me, I've worked with companies that have started to recognize me over the years, like, oh, hey, Chris. And, and this is like somebody that's in the field that doesn't interact with me all the time, but they've seen me on,
That's cool.
on the premise or on job sites. And
As an
so then
extension of the team. Yeah,
yeah, a little bit. And that's kind of a fun place to be. And then I get to help them, knowing that, hey, this is going to not only make their images elevate their business, but it can also aid in their recruitment capabilities.
yeah,
There's
good point.
so many layers that, you can take this, and it's really important. And on the note of recruitment, I think it's important to capture images of your crew working in a way that really shows them doing their, honing their craft. And whether it's a mallet on a hitting a paver, whether it's that look of concentration, driving the skid steer, or whether it's just the happiness of planting plants in the ground, or maintaining a line of boxwood, or any of those kinds of things. That's really valuable, not only to clients to see the work that's being done, in terms of like, hey, oh, cool, like I can see you're enjoying your work, but also, and probably more importantly, it's for that recruitment possibility. Because we all know that, the landscape trade is one of the many trades that struggle trying to find good help, or trying to find help in general. And so if we're not taking opportunities to show our crews out in the field, and we're just hiding behind a logo, then it's going to be really, really difficult for somebody that might be looking for work to want to consider your company.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Chris, this has been so good. Thank you so much for your time today. And I think what we should do, you mentioned a couple guides that you have on your website. We'll put that in the show notes. And do you want to tell everybody how to get in touch with you if they're interested?
Yeah, for sure. Well, they can find me online, and my website. They can find me online. My website is chrismimages.com, and if they want to find me on Instagram, you can find me at the landscaper photographer, or Chris M Images. But if you want to find me, usually you're going to find me at the landscaper photographer. That's going to be the easiest way to find me on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn and all those other wonderful things. But Instagram is the easiest way to get a hold of me.
And you can
And
see all your photos.
there you go. You can check it all out that way, and we can go from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and look forward to talking to you again, Chris.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.